2021, Steven Peterson said, I am boycotting the Texas Commission. In 2022, he had a Fight of the Year contender with Julian Erosa. In 2023, he's going to be welcoming Lucas Alexander to the home state, the Lone Star State, the man out of Fortis MMA. Is Steven Peterson. And for Peterson, he's been around and in the minds of fans since the OG season of Dana White's Contender Series 2017. Peterson didn't get the win there. It was actually Benito Lopez who was able to do it. But if you look at it for Peterson in the UFC, 3-4. If you look at the 5-on-in, it's 2-3. But even some of these fights could have gone either way. I mean, he has a loss to Luis Pena. The fight that really kind of got him the wrong way was the fight against Alex Caceres that he lost by decision. Very close fight. Finished Martin Bravo.
One
performance
of the knockouts
of the night bonus. He beat Chase Hooper in a giant upset, and then his last time out, as I mentioned, he loses a split decision to Julian Erosa. But you go down through all of this, and you look at it. Every single fight before Steven Peterson fought on Dana White's Contender Series, he went 15-5. All 20 of those fights were in Texas. So he was kind of salty about that Caceres fight. I went down through it. 7 on MMA decision scored it 29-28 Peterson, and 7 scored it 29-28 Caceres.
Again, we talk about losses where you can gain stock and wins where you can lose it. I never thought in a million years Steven Peterson would have a close fight with Alex Caceres, guys, and I will raise my hand and admit when I'm wrong. I thought he looked really good in that matchup. Now, granted, I thought Caceres did enough to win the fight, but it was an odd, kind of hesitant Alex Caceres, and to Steven Peterson's credit, because here's the thing, you can always guarantee this in a Peterson fight. Is he going to be worried about moving forward? Not at all. He thinks that's the only rule in MMA is that you can't take a step backwards. Now, it makes the viewing experience phenomenal because Steven Peterson is rarely involved in really boring fights, and I do like that at least we know how aggressive he's going to be because even when I bring up Alex Caceres, who is an extremely talented fighter, he has all the talent, but we don't always see it every performance. Peterson might not have Yair Rodriguez striking or Alexander Volkanovski technique, and I know you hate this term. He got that dog in him, though. And that's what I really do like about Peterson.
Hold on, you're telling me a guy that tattooed the Superman logo on his chest has
with like
dog
chains
in him?
around it. But that's the thing. You look at his record, you think 19-10. You might roll your eyes at that. But he is extremely aggressive. He can take a shot to give a shot. He has great lasting power in the UFC. The one thing I will say about Peterson, though, is, and I bring this up about Caceres, he will have moments where he just walks forward, but he doesn't set things up behind the just marching forward. His stance will kind of square to where his shoulders are just walking forward on his opponent, and that's the version that's almost a little bit too overconfident. Again, I like that part of his game to where he is aggressive. He makes his opponents feel very uncomfortable, but in some matchups, it is one of those double-edged swords to where it can get him caught. So I'll be really interested to see how Alexander does deal with some of that pressure, especially you being a debuting fighter coming in against Steven Peterson. Like, it's a tough ask for anybody.
Well, it's a tough ask, and you made a little bit of an oopsie there.
Not because a debut.
For Lucas Alexander, he made his debut on 6 days' notice, replacing Melzik Bogdazarian against Joe Anderson Brito. Nobody thought that he would win. Joe Anderson Brito even less so, because he went in there, just cut the distance, was able to get the takedown off of an Alexander head kick from a phone booth apart. He was right there, went head kick with a hip high. He slipped, and then Brito just was able to get the back, and then ultimately get him in the choke and get the submission win.
I thought Brito versus Peterson, if Peterson is able to win.
Yeah, big time win there, but a first round finish loss for Lucas Alexander. And if you go down through Alexander's record, it wasn't that I wasn't sold on Alexander fighting Brito, if I can be completely honest and candid with everyone. I wasn't sold on Alexander at all. I mean, his level of competition was very, very poor. And you got to commend a guy early on in his career to kind of have the forethought to have these fights in the States, to be training at a Fusion XL. A lot of great fighters out of there. Philip Rose won. Adolfo Vieira. We saw Jacare Souza out of there for part of his career.
Did Mike Perry make that gym famous, oddly enough?
Mike Perry, BKFC zone. But when you go down through the record, and if you're just comparing it, and records are for DJs, I know this, but for Lucas Alexander, best win in coming into the UFC was his win in the main event of Anthony Pettis FC #1 against Jacob Kilburn. He threw a nice amount of kicks in the first round. He threw that kick low to the body that Kilburn went to block, and then Kilburn looked like he broke his arm or his wrist in that one. He shakes it off, the referee runs in, and that's the end of the fight. So a good win for Lucas Alexander, but I know we kind of touched on it in his debut, and looking forward to him. What are some of the positives that we had of Alexander? One of the best leg kicks you're going to see out there on the regional scene really low hands like he's riding a chopper, and then he just likes to throw a lot of hooks.
It's very Fedor from Pride-esque. That's where he holds his hands very low.
Not a lot of straight shots, not a ton of volume, some good power from Lucas Alexander. The jiu-jitsu is a little bit of a question mark. Obviously, it got him caught against Brito, but there were other things that led to that finish, and Brito is going to get you if you're going to leave that out there. But you have a look at it. I mean, Steven Peterson, he's had these fights in the UFC. He fights at an incredibly high output, but he also absorbs a lot of damage. He had a fight of the night really as early on as you can in your UFC career against Brandon Davis. So you go down through this one, it's the fact that Lucas Alexander is typically the biggest fighter that he's, the biggest fighter that's in the cage at that given time at featherweight. Big frame, big featherweight. And you look at it for Steven Peterson, he's kind of going to be able to match that a little bit. Not necessarily in reach, a little bit less and a little bit less in height, but both guys should be very close when it does come to weigh-in day. And again, Peterson gets that kind of comfort of, well, I train out of Fortis MMA, not that far of a fight for him. So you have a look at the odds. Peterson is actually favored in the matchup. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, I'm going to say over under 72.5% Peterson.
I think they'll be under.
You think they're going to be under? Oh, look at that. 648 total votes, 73% Peterson, 81% by decision for the 27% that have Alexander, 60% by decision. And I think for a lot of people, I'm kind of surprised they're going with Alexander to win by decision in that respect.
It'd be by knockout.
I know Peterson is tougher than a $2 stake. But Alexander's one of those guys that could catch you off balance.
Well, when you're walking forward, too, if you're fighting a guy who already has pretty darn good punching power and you're just moving forward on that punching power, it's going to make it hit a lot harder. And that's why this is one of those fights where Peterson, I think, is going to win by decision. That is my prediction. I like Peterson in the matchup. I like his aggressiveness. I like his output. But, and this is a big but, his fighting style opens the window for anybody who has punching power to win a fight. You don't become 19-10 by being better than everybody technically in every area of the game. So I love watching Steven Peterson fight. I think this will be a really entertaining fight. And hopefully Alexander can at least take this a little bit late so we learn a little bit more about him, because you didn't learn a lot about him in his debut. Granted, like Brito, I think it's fair to say is a level above. But I have Peterson in the matchup, and I'm excited for the fight. I do think he can make it interesting.
Peterson, his last 2 times out, he missed weight, 148.5 against Chase Hooper, 149 against Julian Rosa. Fight of the night. Where's my money? Well, your opponent gets to keep that. So you go down through it. Peterson has struggled on the scale in the past. We wish him well in the weight cut, and hopefully the Texas Commission is off of his back.
Hopefully.
Both of us going with Steven Peterson in the matchup. I think his style is conducive to a win in this one. Some big-time fights on this card. Matt, co-main event. Holm taking on Yana Santos. Not going to want to miss that one. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.